There we go. We are live. Don't adjust those dials. I am back for the third time today. Live Before Lock is coming up next, where I will be just jamming pizza bites down my throat. But at least for the next hour and 15 minutes, you're going to get quality DFS coverage, thanks to Adam being on this show. Adam, what's going on, man? What do you think of this 14 gamer? Yeah, I'm anxious to see how crunches start to look. Um, Pitching at the top is just absolutely loaded, and seeing how that shakes out and what stacks have to rise to the top to get to that pitching. I'm honestly a little nervous to see what sort of dregs of the bottom that start showing up in my lineups, but we shall see. Sure. It's basically like, this guy does pitch today. People are saying that they can't hear you, so I can fix that right now. You guys should be able to hear him now. Apologies, that's my fault. I had to change the audio input when I recorded my little pizza bite video to post on Twitter. Didn't switch that back. So we got it. Adam was just talking about how I'm really good at DFS, and he's like super envious of my skills.
I'm honored to be on the show with Josh today.
Yeah. It was just trust me that that's what he was saying. Let's get the plugs out of the way first. Deeper Dive is the promo code, which I feel like I've never had to plug. You get 50% off your first month with that code. Any package you choose, including a package with Fantasy Cruncher. So if you want to sign up, enter the promo code Deeper Dive. And we are brought to you by Yahoo Sports. Yahoo is our presenting sponsor for this show, for the strategy show, for the Early Bird podcast. If you'd like to join Yahoo, please use the link that I'm dropping in the chat right now. It won't affect your experience at all, but you will help us out tremendously. You can get up to $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points by using the promo code AWESEMO when signing up. They had a management-free tournament this morning, a $3 entry, 10 max tournament, and the contest had no management fee whatsoever. So that's the first contest you should enter every day if you're playing DFS and you're looking to get into it a little bit more, because you'll never find a contest better than not having any rake. You ready to do this, man? 14 games.
Yeah, let's go.
Alrighty, we're starting it off at the top. And delete. Nationals and Marlins. 4.8 run implied total for the Nats, 4.2 for the Marlins, 57% chance to win for Washington. Kyle McGowan going for the Nats, Pablo Lopez going for the Marlins. McGowan getting a little bit of love in the ownership projections. Lopez, not so much. I kind of like it the opposite way, but I'm curious to get your take. What do you think about going to McGowan or to Pablo Lopez?
I have some interest in McGowan, more so than Lopez. It's a tougher matchup for Lopez going against the Nats. I do think he's the better pitcher, but he's a little bit more expensive on the two pitcher sites, which is the only place either of these pitchers matter. And he's not facing the Marlins like McGowan is. So McGowan isn't any worse probably than, when you factor in matchup, than other guys in his price range. He's only thrown 10 major league innings in his career. He's not a top prospect or anything like that. But at AAA this year, he did strike out over 27% of hitters, had a 15.5% swinging strike percentage, 44% ground ball percentage, and nearly a 16% infield fly ball percentage. So a good strikeout rate, and almost 60% or greater than 60% if you include, lazy flyouts also, of balls put in play against him were favorable, batted ball outcomes. So against this Marlins team, I don't mind getting to him, as an SP2. For Lopez, it's just that I think the matchup with the Nats is kind of risky, and you can get risky matchups for a lot less money on this slate that let you get in more, Coors bats or whatever expensive bats you want to go to. So I do have more interest in McGowan.
How long do you think McGowan will go into this game?
He should be stretched out. He's been starting at AAA all year.
Okay. Good to know. I only gave him 4 innings just because, I didn't expect him to go super deep, but I could probably afford to bump that up a little bit. Marlins getting a little love from an ownership perspective. They are, and they have been lately, a chalky-ish team that's been a conduit for people to get to more expensive pitching, more expensive stacks. Is that a way that you want to go today?
No, I'm going to stay in the same spot that I have been. The price points are nice. They're guys that I could see getting to in cash games. You have Curtis Granderson leading off at a cheap price tag, Brian Anderson and Starlin Castro, both really, really cheap. But in tournaments, these guys just don't have enough power and aren't good enough hitters for me to want to be rostering them at high ownership, because Alex made this point on a show the other day, but it's I think the right way to look at it. If the Marlins go off, which certainly they can, it's a pitcher in McGowan who probably isn't very good. It's a Nats bullpen that's atrocious. But if they go off at these really cheap price tags, it's just a really, really high scoring slate where you're competing with a ton of teams still. Those aren't the slates that I really look to win, if that makes any sense. Like when slates are super high scoring, it's because chalk did really well, and I kind of just accept that I'm not going to win those slates. I set my whole strategy is to win the slates where that doesn't happen. So, getting to these Marlins bats that lets me build lineups the same way that everyone else isn't really something I'm looking to do, because I just don't think that they have enough power or enough talent in their offense to justify high ownership.
Yeah, I feel the same way. They obviously grade out as solid, point per dollar type plays because their prices are in the gutter. And, in general, there's a floor to a baseball projection for especially for hitters at the top of the order. There's an accepted standard of what you're going to get. And generally speaking, no matter how bad you really are at the top, if you're hitting at the top of the order and have a low price, you're going to have a decent value. And that's why you'll see teams like the Marlins coming up so much, because people are using optimizers, and that's going to be the first thing that spits out to be able to get to the high-end pitching, the Sales and the Snells and the Syndergaards of the world. I don't really want to get to Marlins. I'm sure I'll have a little bit. They do work pretty well as filler, but if, someone like Starlin Castro is going to be 27% and Curtis Granderson's going to be 25%, you're not really gaining all that much. If those guys go for double dongs or something, you just have to be resigned to the fact that you're not going to have it. I can't recommend it. Do you want to go to Nats bats?
So first, I wanted to kind of double back to your question about McGowan, how deep he can go. He hasn't pitched at AAA since May 12th. He only threw 68 pitches in that outing. The one before that, he threw 100, 97, 95. So I would imagine you get at least like 70 to 80 pitches from him here.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, and so we're on the same page with Miami. For the Nats, probably not somewhere I'm really getting to on this slate. There are just so many good hitter spots. I do have respect for Pablo Lopez as a pitcher, and the Nats, aren't super cheap. You have Rendon, who's at like 5,500 on DraftKings. It's nothing that really stands out as a spot that I plan to prioritize.
Okay, good to know. Yeah, Matt Adams, $7 on Yahoo. That stands out as interesting. 2,300 on FanDuel, also interesting. He's a more reasonable 4,100 on DraftKings. I don't really have a ton of interest in either one of these teams. Marlins, because of their ownership. Nats just are, I think Lopez is good enough.
Yeah,
he's not a total gas can.
Yeah, like the Nats are one of those teams where the Marlins don't have a good bullpen either, and Lopez isn't a lights out pitcher. On a smaller slate, if the Nats weren't getting ownership, I would like them just as like talent plays.
Yeah.
But you have plenty of other options that you can do that with on this slate, not to mention the actual clear cut top options.
That's good. Moving on. Pirates and Dodgers, 3.6 run implied total for the Pirates, 4.9 for the Dodgers, 64% chance to win for LA. Steven Brault appears to be the guy coming in for Pittsburgh from everything I've seen. Walker Buehler going for the Dodgers. Finally got a line on this game. Took pretty much all day. I like Walker Buehler, but a matchup against the Pirates, a team that doesn't strike out all that much on a day where there's like 7 other Walker Buehlers going. He grades out well on a different slate. He might be the top pitcher. Today's just not that day.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. I didn't even mention him in today's article, and it has nothing to do with him having not being a good pitcher or anything like that. I think he is good. I think that the matchup, I think he does well. It's just that you don't have a ton of strikeouts in the Pirates lineup, and this is a slate where you just have some of the best pitchers in the game all going, and it's not like you're getting a price discount on Buehler either. So yeah, really, really difficult for me to get to him. not looking to get the Pirates bats against him either, though, because I don't think it's a good matchup and because I don't think he has much ownership.
Okay. Yeah, I feel the same way. He's getting no love, 1% on FanDuel, 6% on DK. I mean, if I get to 3 or 4, I assume you're in the same regard. You're not going to freak out and get him out of there or anything.
Yeah,
but you just don't expect it to show up. And then I think we're both on the same page. We're not touching Brault.
No, not touching Brault. Do have interest in the Dodgers.
Yeah.
Kind of what I was mentioning with the Nats as far as, a team that just from a talent standpoint has upside. I think the Dodgers are one of those teams on this slate because it's, Brault has his own issues. It's not a great Pittsburgh bullpen behind him, and the Dodgers just have so much talent in their lineup that I think they have, a ton of upside. I don't think people are going to pay $5,900 for Cody Bellinger, who has far and away been the best hitter in baseball this season. Not saying he's better than Mike Trout long term or anything, but this season he's been the best hitter in baseball. Muncy from the left side, it's just not an ideal spot because it's lefty against Brault once he comes into the game. But these guys do handle left-handed pitching well, and if they can get to Brault early, then it's sky's the limit against this bullpen. So they're a team that I do have some tournament stack interest in.
And they are going completely underowned. 7% going to Justin Turner, but 2 to Bellinger, 3 to Seager, 1 to Peterson, 3% to Muncy. I mean, you're clearly getting a different pitching structure by going to the Dodgers. They're priced up, and that makes it more difficult to do so. Pirates Park plays as relatively neutral for left-handed home run power, and the Dodgers are trotting out a ton of left-handed dudes that love hitting dongs. So I really, really have some interest in Dodgers bats, particularly on DK. They're a little bit more popular on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, if they're underowned, that's just when I want to have them. Any Pirates bats for you? It doesn't strike me as a really great spot.
No, I mean, Josh Bell's really, really good, and I actually believe in his improvements this year, but paying, one of the most expensive price tags on the slate for him against Buehler isn't something I plan on doing.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have anybody that I want to mention, but yeah, go Josh Bell, I guess. Blue Jays and Padres. I'm really anxious to get your take here. 4.1 run implied total for the Jays, 4.4 for the Padres. 53% chance to win for San Diego. Trent Thornton going for the Jays. Joey Lucchesi going for the Padres. No ownership really going to either of these guys. 4 and 5% for Lucchesi on FanDuel and DK. 6% to Thornton on DraftKings. Do you have any interest in either of these guys? Particularly Lucchesi on FanDuel at 7K.
Not really. I mean, Lucchesi on FanDuel at 7K, I think is more than fine. The issue that I have is just that you're still talking about raw points in tournaments, and he just doesn't go deep enough in the games to compete with a lot of the pitchers on this slate. And then you also on FanDuel have Garrett Canning at a similar price point. You have Drew Pomeranz for $5,900. So it's just still, point per dollar. I think it's perfectly fine. It's just from a raw point standpoint, I think it's still tough to get there. Yeah. And then on DraftKings, I really don't have interest because he's priced up, and you're talking about a guy that legitimately may throw 80 pitches at a similar price point to guys that are going to throw 105. Yep. So it's really tough for me to get to Lucchesi. I do have some interest in Thornton on DraftKings. I didn't get a lot in my crunches, which kind of surprised me, at least in my initial crunch. But he's facing a predominantly right-handed San Diego lineup. 6 righties, 3 lefties. He's been much better against righties than lefties this year. There is a lot of power in the San Diego lineup. It's not like it's a safe spot or anything like that. But there are a lot of strikeouts too, and the mid-range on this slate's kind of dead. So with him not getting projected for a lot of ownership, it is a spot where I have some tournament interest. But that being said, I do like Padres bats, especially at their price points. Josh Naylor in particular, batting 6th, $2,800 on DraftKings at first base. He is making his major league debut. He is a reasonably high-rated prospect for them, has a ton of power. He has a 143 ISO steamer projection, but 70 grade raw power, 45 game power, 60 future game power. So against a guy in Thornton that doesn't miss a lot of left-handed bats and gives up a ton of power, I think that Naylor, who does not strike out a lot, is a pretty good play at his price point.
Does it concern you at all that the Padres are the second most owned team on DraftKings?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I don't really I don't have an issue with full stacking them, but if they are like the second highest owned team, then I imagine I would come in underweight.
Yeah.
But I think that still getting to like some one-offs there at the very least makes sense.
Yeah, they are raking in the ownership. Second most on the slate. They're actually ahead of the Rockies.
Yeah, I mean, let's see. So in my initial crunch, as a full 5-man stack on DraftKings, they were like not even in my top 10.
Okay. Any other Padres bats that stand out to you? Looks like Franmil Reyes, Manny Machado.
Yeah.
Looking perfect. Machado with the dual eligibility too. I mean, he can be in a ton of lineups.
Yeah, Machado with the dual eligibility and Reyes just with absolutely enormous power at a mid-range price tag. When you talk about, upside in tournaments, there aren't that many guys priced around Reyes, even though, the outfield does have good hitters that offer you, a 260 plus ISO and, just the amount of double dong upside that Reyes has.
Yeah. Any interest in the Blue Jays bats, particularly someone like Vlad Jr., who grades out really well in the Awesemo projections? Looks to be an excellent value here, righty-lefty matchup. Do you want to get to any more Blue Jays or any Blue Jays at all?
Yeah, Vlad's interesting to me just because it's kind of the same thing I was saying about Reyes as far as the amount of, upside per dollar. Not that he projects great against Lucchesi, but just how talented he is. I think that he's still underpriced. And then you also, just from a cheap catcher standpoint, you can go to Danny Jansen at 2,700 batting ninth.
Yes, you can. It's a solid catcher option if you're stacking it up, getting no ownership. I mean, the only person getting any ownership is Grichuk, 13%. Everybody else is 6, 7, or 1. So I do have a little bit of interest in some of these guys at the top of the Toronto lineup because there's a lot of power there.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to touch on in this game?
Nope.
Perfect opportunity for everybody to hit that like button and to subscribe to the channel so that you can get alerts every time we go live. Why wouldn't you want to get those? Get alerts immediately at 6 o'clock when we go live and I eat an excessive amount of pizza bites. 3.25 pounds worth, unfortunately. Mets and Tigers, 4.7 run implied total for the Mets, 2.8 for the Tigers. That's a 72% chance to win for the Mets, which is staggering. Noah Syndergaard going for New York. Gregory Soto should be going for the AAA affiliate of the Tigers, but unfortunately going for the Tigers themselves. We're clearly not playing Gregory Soto. So talk to me about where you stand on Syndergaard.
I hate slates where there's a lot of pitching options and Syndergaard's still like the best one, but
36% expected ownership on DK right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's with it being a 14-game slate, I just don't. I think that ownership gets spread out enough that, especially amongst hitters, that I don't need to get too cute at pitcher. Him being 10,100 compared to like 11.4 for Snell, 11.2 for Sale on DraftKings, makes it really tough to get away from him. And he's $49 on Yahoo compared to where's Snell?
Snell's 54, Sale
yeah,
51.
Yeah, so you're still getting the discount there. He's facing, a right-handed heavy Tigers lineup. He's a good pitcher. I don't think he's in the same class as guys like Sale and Snell. And I think that in general, the DFS community overvalues Noah Syndergaard's contributions. But it's just a really favorable price point against this team for a guy that can go deep in the games. He can pick up strikeouts. He has the second highest ground ball percentage on the slate behind Joey Lucchesi. It's just a really good spot. He's clearly, I think, the cash game SP1 on DraftKings. Yeah. And unless you're just playing absolutely chalk hitters in tournaments, I think he's fine there too. Yeah. On FanDuel, I don't think he's anywhere near as appealing as he is on DraftKings or FanDuel, though, because he is priced up there relative to other pitchers. Like on FanDuel, you have Robbie Ray at 8,700, whereas on DraftKings, he's $800 more expensive than Syndergaard.
Yeah, it's silly pricing there. On FanDuel, I think he's fine. He's just not like the clear-cut dude that he is on DK and to a lesser extent Yahoo. I'm going to go to him. I can't see any way around it. I honestly have no idea where I end up. I'm guessing probably somewhere in the neighborhood of the field and probably bigger stands elsewhere. But that's what happens when you face the Tigers and their sea of right-handed bats. You just get a lot of whoever's pitching, generally speaking. How do you feel about Mets bats, though? Largely going overlooked.
Yeah, so they didn't come in my crunch nearly as much as I expected, but I am going to go back in and look at that because I think that I had them under projected a little bit. For whatever reason, Gregory Soto was projected a little high in my projections, and so I probably need to bump the Mets on the other side. Soto's terrible. The Tigers bullpen's terrible. Soto, I can't believe this guy's still in the majors. Like, I thought for sure he was just making one start during a doubleheader and that he would probably never pitch in the major leagues again. But he's still here. He's absolutely awful. And you do have, really nice price points on the Mets. And while they have flawed hitters, they do have some pop from the right side. You get, value at the top with Rosario leading off at shortstop. Todd Frazier is a reasonably priced third baseman. Ramos fills your catcher position. Pete Alonso is actually good. He's expensive, but he's actually good. It's, I think, a really high upside spot for the Mets. And if people aren't going to get there, I would like to.
Yeah, the only bummer is the fact that Davis and Frazier have the third base eligibility and not some sort of broken up split so that you can get to it. I like the top of it too. And if they're going unowned, I think it's very interesting because Soto's terrible.
Yeah, he's bad. Like, we talk about pitchers being bad, and normally we mean like in the context of a major league pitcher.
Yeah.
I mean like in the context of like a AAA pitcher. He's not good.
No, he should not be in the league.
Right. Like he was not really great at AA, and he had never pitched above that until his 3 starts with the Tigers.
Keep saving those per diem checks, Gregory Soto. Any interest in a Tigers battle against Syndergaard?
Not really on this slate. I mean, Syndergaard's someone that I normally don't mind taking hitters against when he's really popular, because he does give up stolen bases and because he does have a tendency to throw his fastball right down the middle and to get quote unquote unlucky, but not really seeing it on this slate.
Yeah, I'm on the same page here. Indians and Rays, lots to talk about in this one. 3.5 run implied total for the Indians, 3.9 for the Rays. It's a 55% chance to win for Tampa. Shane Bieber going for Cleveland. Blake Snell going for the Rays. Both guys getting some ownership, pretty comparable to both of them. A little bit less so to Snell, where he's super expensive on FanDuel. Take your pick. Who would you prefer today, Blake Snell or Shane Bieber?
Snell, and it's not close for me. Snell's been one of the best in baseball this year. He leads the league, or he leads the slate in strikeout percentage at 37.8%. He leads the entire league or all starters that have thrown at least 300 pitches in called strike plus swinging strike percentage this year. He has the best PCRA out of every qualified starter in baseball at like 2.01. He's been great. His strikeout percentage, like I said, is up over 37%. His walk percentage has come down even more, down to like 6.5% so I think it's the 3rd or 4th straight year that he's improved his walk percentage. The Indians lineup is not very good. Lindor is good. Ramirez maybe is good. Everyone else is not very good.
You're selling Carlos Santana short here.
He's a lot worse from the right side than the left.
Very true.
So, but yeah, if you want to call him good, then okay. But like, you have lefty with Kipnis. You have Jordan Luplow batting 4th. Roberto Perez, they're like always their 9 hitter, is now the 6 hitter. It's just a really good spot for Snell. I think on most slates you would get you get just far and away the most ownership on the slate on Snell, but because of the presence of Syndergaard and then also some ownership trickling to these other pitchers like Sale and Bieber and whoever, that he won't be that highly owned. We have him right now on DraftKings projected at 11% ownership. In my initial crunch, I got 25%. Once I sort lineups, that would go up even more, most likely because of his ownership. So I expect that him and Syndergaard are my 2 highest owned of the expensive pitchers.
Okay. You didn't mention, I'm going to butcher the last name, or maybe it's just going to be really easy. You didn't mention Eric Hase. I don't know what the real pronunciation is, but he's garbage as well.
Good to know.
Yeah. So just in case you were worried about the 8 hitter, not to worry. He's like the Gregory Soto of hitting. I'm a big fan of Bieber here today. I think this Rays lineup projects for an above average strikeout rate. The site projections coming from Alex, we have him at 19.4 fantasy points on DraftKings right now. I'm probably going to give that a little bit of a bump for myself. He's just a guy that I want to get to. I think that he has the opportunity to go deeper into this game. He does not walk hitters whatsoever. That helps me think that he can go a little bit deeper. And if he can pick up a couple of those strikeouts, all the better. His most recent start was just probably the best start of any pitcher that we'll see this year, or at least somewhere in that neighborhood. It's going to be hard to, knock him out of that seat. Just phenomenal. That's what happens when you play a garbage team like the Orioles. But I'm digging it. I like Shane Bieber quite a bit. I was hoping that his ownership would go a little bit lower just because he is Shane Bieber and there's so many other guys, but it looks like, he's going to be in the mid-teens. I assume that I'll be higher than that. Am I totally crazy?
I mean, I have no interest at his price. I just don't think he's as good a pitcher as the guys priced around him. And the matchup here actually scares me because he does have decent strikeout stuff. He doesn't walk guys like you said, but he does give up power to both sides of the plate. And Tampa Bay does have a lot of that. If you're not going to be an elite strikeout pitcher and you are going to, you're not going to walk guys, you're going to get balls put in play. I think that it's kind of a scary spot for him. If he were, like 8,500 or something, I would like him a lot. But from a talent standpoint, I think he's good. I just don't think he's, as good as other guys on the slate. And I think he's a little bit overpriced.
Yeah, to be fair, I like him a lot more on FanDuel at 9,600 than I do where he's the fourth most expensive pitcher on DK. More expensive than Syndergaard for that matter.
Right.
Do you anticipate getting to any bats in this game, either side?
Not really. Definitely not looking to bats against Snell. Yeah. And as far as Tampa Bay goes, like I said, I do think that it's a pretty nice spot for their power. The problem is just that they're expensive, and there are so many, good hitting spots to go to on the slate that it's tough for me to pay over $5K for Austin Meadows. It's tough for me to pay, almost $5K for Brandon Lau. So I don't think I'll get to much of the hitting from this game.
They are not getting any ownership, but 105 park factor for left-handed hitter home run power. So if you do need to take anybody against Bieber in this spot, or potentially, against Blake Snell, as weird as it sounds, the lefties might be the spot. I don't have anything else on this game.
Me neither. I'm trying to find pitcher game scores so that I can immediately prove you wrong on
Bieber's was 100.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah. Yeah, Bieber's was 100.
I didn't know you had actually looked. I thought you were just throwing that out.
Well,
I
was looking at the game logs from Bieber earlier today, and on FanGraphs, it's the rightmost column on that game logs page.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's either 1 or 2 right now, I would guess. And, I mean, you don't see a lot of them crest 100.
Yeah.
No runs, and how many Ks was it? 15
or something.
Yeah, that's no walks. It's going to be tricky. The one thing I wanted to ask, I don't know if you have this up or if it's something that you look at regularly. Do you happen to know if there's a pitching or hitting ump in this Indians-Rays game?
I think I can let you know somewhat quickly.
Okay, because obviously a very positive pitcher ump is going to be beneficial to Bieber if he can get a little bit of extra love on the corners with his sort of control.
Extremely good pitchers ump in this game.
Good to know. Hope that's not false information. Twins and White Sox, 5.3 run implied total for the Twins. 3.8 for the Sox. 64% chance to win for those Minnesota Jakes. Jose Barrios going for the Twins. Ronaldo Lopez going for the White Sox. Let's start here. Lopez at all?
Nah, just such a brutal matchup.
Yeah, okay, good. Barrios, 13% ownership on Yahoo, 15 on DK. We're seeing a lot of these guys just be in the teens on the two pitcher sites. Very little ownership on FanDuel. Normally you see pitchers like this just get a ton of love against the White Sox because there's so much swing and miss, but doesn't appear to be the case today. What do you want to do with him?
Yeah, I don't think I really get to much either. I mentioned it in the article that basically it's another example of if this were like a shorter slate, I think I would, especially on DraftKings where he's $100 more expensive than Syndergaard, I would end up getting to a lot of him because there would be so much ownership, going to Syndergaard and instead of Barrios. And while I do have Syndergaard projected higher, I don't think that he beats Barrios like a huge percentage of the time here that would justify that. But because there are so many good pitching options, you have, Syndergaard's ownership more likely to come into like 30 or 40% than like 55. And we still have Barrios projected at 15. So it's just not a spot where I think that given the difference in my projection between the two, that I need to get to Barrios, especially because there are also 28 different teams to stack. So you can be, contrarian there while rostering Syndergaard. It's just not a spot that I think I'm really getting to. Obviously, there is a lot of strikeout upside for Barrios. He has been better at home throughout his career. He's been pretty good overall this year, in general. So I think it's a fine spot. It's just not a spot that I expect to get to on this slate.
That makes sense to me. I don't get the sense that I'm going to get a ton either. I assume that I'll just get more of those other guys around there. Bieber in particular is a guy that's standing out to me. How about bats? Twins bats have been absolutely nuking the ball, well, all season, I guess, but even particularly lately. And they are getting no ownership at all. Zilch, nada, none. Kepler at 8% on FanDuel, 7 on DK. Everybody else is like 1, 2, 3. I would like to get a ton of Twins here, considering I don't think Ronaldo Lopez is particularly good. What am I missing? Why are they so unowned other than price?
Price in the slate. I mean, in my dummy crunch, they came in as like I guess tied for like my 6th highest stack or 7th highest stack. But I wasn't getting massive amounts of them or anything. But I do think it's a good spot. I do think that they're a team where, even though I don't get tons of them in Fantasy Cruncher, that once I sort my lineups and factor in ownership projections, there's a pretty good chance that they're a team that I come in overweight on, because Lopez does have good stuff. He has the ability to be good, but he certainly isn't consistently good. And this Twins lineup just, they have a ton of power. They don't strike out a lot. We're top to bottom, everyone in this lineup has power. So there's so many different ways to stack them. It's a high upside matchup here. The weather's fine in Minnesota. So, I do think that it's a spot where I'm pretty likely to come in over the field.
Yeah, you and me both. I wish Lopez was getting a little bit of ownership just to like make me feel even better about it. Any interest in White Sox bats? They're exceptional value on Yahoo, where they have 5 guys at the flat minimum. FanDuel, a little bit better. DK, it looks okay at the top. It's just all about how much Barrios you want to stack against.
Yeah, Wellington Castillo in particular is a one-off. He's $2,900 on DraftKings. He has power. That's a really good price tag for a catcher who's batting cleanup and can hit a home run.
Okay. Yeah, if I got to like a one-off Moncada or something, I'd be cool with that. He's not getting any ownership at all.
Yeah, Moncada's just tough because he's the same, at least on DraftKings, he's the same price as Turner, same price as Machado, same price as Chapman, same price as Guerrero, same price as Carpenter.
Okay. Yeah, that does make it pretty tough. Not all of those guys are getting Jose Barrios against them. Alrighty. Moving on, unless you've got anything else here.
I was just going to, I guess, to put it in the context, I'd mentioned Danny Jansen as like a cheap catcher punt earlier. I would rather have Castillo than Jansen.
Castillo, 19% expected ownership on DraftKings, makes for a very nice cash game catcher.
Yep. And with that in mind, it also makes for Danny Jansen as the tournament pivot.
Yep, exactly. Alrighty. So, this is my favorite game of the slate, so I'm really anxious to get your thoughts. Milwaukee Brewers hosting the Philadelphia Phillies. 4.9 run implied total for the Brew Crew, 4.2 for the Phils, 57% chance to win for Milwaukee. Chase Anderson going for the Brewers, Jared Eichhoff going for the Phillies. No ownership at all going to either pitcher. Let's start there. Do you want to have either pitcher?
Nope.
Okie dokie. Very, very minimal amount of ownership going to the Phillies. 2% aggregate. Nobody more than 7% to Harper. Very little ownership going to the Brewers on DraftKings. A little bit more going to them on FanDuel, but still nothing crazy. How do you feel about either one of these teams or both in terms of stacks?
So the Brewers in my dummy crunch came in tied with Colorado as my highest owned stack, which I'm really happy to see, especially if they're not projected for a lot of ownership.
Yeah.
Eichhoff can be good at times for sure, but it's a park that plays up left-handed power, and he has struggled with left-handed power throughout his career, and now you're just getting a ton of it. Hopefully Christian Yelich is in this lineup. If he's not, then that makes it a bit less appealing. But guys like Moustakas, Grandal, Thames, Yelich, if he's in there,
he's in the lineup, by the way.
Okay, cool. I hadn't seen that lineup.
Yep.
That helps then. So, obviously a lot of left-handed power there. You have right-handed hitters that are good. Keston Hiura, if he's in the lineup, which I still can't see.
He is.
Okay, yeah. I mean, he's just, like a cheap second base option that has power. So it's a really high upside spot, and I like getting there in tournaments. For the Phillies, I didn't get them in my initial crunch, but I do like the spot for them, and I think it's a spot where by the time I finish my lineups, I might end up at, because Chase Anderson has been a reverse splits pitcher throughout his career. You have this Phillies lineup that has a lot of right-handed power, plus Bryce Harper, and I think probably does go overlooked, like you said. So I clearly prefer Milwaukee in this game, but Philadelphia is a stack that, does go overlooked, and I think has more upside than people give it credit for.
Yeah, between this park and like two pitchers that are fine, I just want to bet on bats, and both of these teams project to have massive power. There's so many high ISO hitters up and down each lineup that this is the sort of spot I want to be, especially on a 14-game slate, especially when nobody's owning them. Would it really shock anybody if the Brewers hit like 4 or 5 home runs today? It shouldn't.
I mean, I just loaded up on the Brewers against Luis Castillo. I'm not going to shy away against Eichhoff.
Yeah, that's very true. I went the other direction, loaded up on Luis Castillo. It was fantastic for me.
Yeah.
Couldn't have been happier.
You got to enjoy my DMs all day about how much money I was making.
Yeah, you just being like, oh, I really needed this. Man, I told you 5 minutes ago that I have 83% Luis Castillo. Good times, good times. Favorite bat on the Brewers?
Christian Yelich?
Well, I always mean like relative to salary.
Oh, okay. I mean,
I know how to say that Christian Yelich is the best player on the Brewers. That doesn't confuse me at all.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of what I actually got in my initial crunch, I got Christian Yelich, Yasmani Grandal at the same amount. They were the two highest. Moustakas just behind them. Eric Thames just behind him.
Good to know.
Yeah. I mean, Grandal, I would say, is like the most valuable because of his position and price.
How do you feel about the Phillies? Was it Harper first for you?
I don't know that I really got any.
Really?
Yeah, which again, I think probably changes. But yeah, so I mean, Harper was my highest owned Philly, but he wasn't very highly owned.
The under is hit in all of Eichhoff's last 5 starts against the NL Central. Can't get those sort of tidbits from anybody other than Sean V. Real asset to the program. As if the team knows that they're in the Central. I know that was what I always thought about. What division are these teams in?
I wonder if Eichhoff has faced 5 NL Central teams this year, because if not, we're going back to 2017.
He certainly hasn't.
Because he missed like all of last year, if I remember right.
Yeah, shockingly, that's not an important stat. How much weight do you think Alex puts into that stat in his model? It's got to be like staggeringly high, right? Yeah, how else would you be the number 1 player in the world?
Yeah.
I hope I choke on one of these pizza bites. Like to death, because there's no one here to save me, and I don't think my dog knows the Heimlich. Astros and Red Sox, 4-run implied total for the Stros, 4.5 for the Red Sox, 56% chance to win for Boston. Wade Miley going for Houston. Chris Sale going for Boston. Certainly not going to talk about Wade Miley on a day like today, or at least I would imagine we're not. What do you want to do with Chris Sale?
It's just really tough for me to justify. Because he's $200 less than Snell on DraftKings, and Snell's not projected for a lot of ownership. If like you didn't have Syndergaard on the slate, or if the slate were just different and Snell were getting a bunch of ownership, then obviously I would be like advocating for taking a chance on Sale in tournaments, because he is really good. He's been better than every pitcher on the slate except for Blake Snell this year. But Snell has a more favorable matchup. Snell's not projected for a ton of ownership. And, most importantly, he's not facing the Astros. So it's obviously not surprising if Sale outscores, all or most of the other pitchers, but I just don't think it happens often enough to justify going to him over some of these other guys.
Yeah, 20% ownership right now on Yahoo, 8% on FanDuel, 13% on DK. Like, yeah, he's good, and he grades out like a good pitcher normally does on this slate. The problem is there are other guys like that don't cost 11 too, and really that's, when push comes to shove, that's the problem. So if all of these guys had the same price, do you think Snell or Sale would have the highest ownership today?
I think Sale would have the highest ownership. I think I would have more Snell.
Okay.
Actually, I know I'd have more Snell. Yeah, I mean, if you just look at like the numbers this year, Sale obviously has had, he's been improving. He's got like a 34% strikeout percentage this year. That's still over 3 percentage points behind Blake Snell. Snell doesn't walk guys either, so it's not like you have that working against him. Sale is second in called strike plus swinging strike percentage behind Blake Snell. He's third in PCRA behind Blake Snell and Garrett Cole. It's basically every stat that I look at. Sale is very close to the top, and he's trailing Blake Snell.
I didn't hear Soto's name anywhere around there. Crazy.
Yeah. He's not qualified yet, Josh.
Yeah. I can't imagine you want any Wade Miley.
No, I mean, I'm not paying that price for him. The only reason I think Miley's relevant to talk about is that he has made adjustments over the second half of last year and so far this year, to where I always am interested in going to Boston because they're so good. Yeah. But it's just worth keeping in mind that a lot of times I think projections probably are a little too high on Boston today, just because any good projection system is going back, multiple years and looking at what Wade Miley's done. And I do think he's a, markedly different pitcher now than he used to be.
Boston going completely unowned outside of Steve Pearce. So My question is this: do you want to go there regardless of how Wade Miley is? If someone like JD Martinez is 1% owned.
Yeah, I mean, if they're unowned, I couldn't care less. Like they could be facing a pitcher much better than Miley, and I would want to get there.
Yeah.
So I mean, they came in as like my 10th highest owned stack, I think. So I don't think I get to a lot of them, but if they are projected for low ownership, I probably have some.
Okay.
As far as sale goes, it's worth pointing out that Houston's lineup is kind of a dumpster fire, or as much of a dumpster fire as Houston's lineup ever can be.
Okay.
I mean, once you get past, like it's Springer, Bregman, Correa, so they're missing Brantley, they're missing someone. Oh, obviously they're missing Altuve.
Where's Gaddis?
I don't know, indie ball. Yeah, I mean, you have, I don't know, like Diaz, Chirinos, Reddick, White, Marisnik is the bottom five. They all obviously have power, but they're guys that Sale can, do away with pretty easily, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I assume we're going to be like the field and not having a ton of Astros bats in any form.
Yeah.
Seems like a really weird spot. Once again, hit that like button, everybody. Helpful to us. Subscribe to the channel so you can get the alert at 6 p.m. to watch me be a gluttonous pig. Cardinals and Braves. 5.2 run implied total for the Cards. Well, man, we're cruising through this. 4.3 for the Braves. 58% chance to win for St. Louis. Miles Michaelis going for the Cards. Mike Fultonevich going for Atlanta. No ownership anywhere except for Michaelis on DraftKings. 7,300. 9% expected ownership. I don't get the sense that you're going to be going to Michaelis here. I don't think I've ever heard you say that you would.
No, I mean, he came in like 8% of my crunches, and I think that'll go down once I play around with like Trent Thornton a little bit. So, I mean, he's fine. It's whatever, but it's not like it's a matchup that I'm looking to exploit. To me, he's really similar to Drew Pomeranz in San Francisco against the the Diamondbacks, except for one of them's pitching in 85-degree heat and humidity in St. Louis, and one of them's pitching in San Francisco.
My dog's at the door.
I was just your dog.
And a little 20-pound thing almost ran straight through it. I can't really advocate for him all that much. I don't mind that price. Like at 7,300, that's why he's viable.
Right.
You can't get too mad about it, but the Braves are not the spot for that. Not on a day like today. I'd rather just pay all the way down and hope for savings. Any Fulte for you?
No, he's just been absolutely awful. Yeah. And it's, I think, a tough matchup for him anyway. It's tough weather to pitch in. I like the Cardinals here. I mean, Fulte's been so bad against hitters from both sides of the plate. You have a lot of really good, talented hitters on the Cardinals. You have very favorable price tags on them as well, because guys like Goldschmidt and Carpenter aren't having the years so far that they normally have. But there's no real reason to think that by the end of the year, they haven't had the same kind of year that they always do. So, just getting on them when they're underpriced is, I think, a good way to go. Dexter Fowler's leading off, which isn't it's not the most appealing hitter, but he's leading off for a team with a 5+ implied run total with a sub 4K price tag. So that's obviously appealing. Paul DeYoung's been fantastic this year. It's a very good fastball hitting team in general, which when Fulte was good is kind of how he got guys out. So I just think it's a brutal matchup for him. And I'm getting the Cardinals as like a top 5, top 3 stack.
Wow. Interesting. That's really high. That's not what I was expecting to hear. Do you like it more or less that Carpenter is hitting 5th?
Don't really care.
Okay. Favorite Cardinals bat?
Probably Goldschmidt.
Okay.
Well, I mean, like Fowler, I think is a good option in cash games. He probably is overowned in tournaments. Looking at in my initial crunch, who I got the most of from the Cardinals, it was DeYoung, Molina. Like they're all pretty close, but DeYoung, Molina, Fowler, Carpenter, Goldschmidt, like basically all the same ownership.
Okay. I'm probably giving too much love to Fulte right now. Might have to take a look at that as we move along.
I mean, I would agree with you if he's back to being what he was in the past, where he's just like a pretty good pitcher, then I would still have interest in the Cards, but not, this much. But I mean, he's been downright bad, should be in the minor leagues bad.
Not great for someone that I thought was going to be like a really nice piece for the Braves moving forward. I don't have anything else here. I'm assuming you don't really have a ton of interest in Braves bats. I mean, Michaelis isn't a great DFS pitcher, but he's a solid actual pitcher.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good enough pitcher that I'm not taking like huge stands against him.
Yeah, they're still pretty pricey.
Right.
Freeman over 5K, Acuna over 5K.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, do I want Freeman at that price tag, or do I want Eric Dames for less? Do I want Carpenter, Goldschmidt? Like Mancini's the same price in Coors. It just gets really tough.
Yeah. All right, Royals, Yankees. I want to point it out right now. This is going to be a wet one. There's a decent chance this game does not happen. Let me check and see what we have the postponement risk at right now in Alex's projections. See if it's updated yet or not. But right now, it's not looking great. Okay, so we don't have anything in there right now, but I expect Alex to at least have a little bit in there. It's looking kind of dicey. Have you taken a look at the weather for this one at all?
No, I'd actually forgotten, and I'm glad, or I'm hoping that you're right that it doesn't go, because I really don't want to roster as much Jake Junis as I was getting.
Yeah, I unfortunately feel the same way. So Jake Junis, well, let's do this. 4.6 run implied total for the Royals, 5.3 for the Yanks, 58% chance to win for New York. It's Jacob Junis going for Kansas City, Luis Sessa coming in for the Yankees. I think Junis is the guy to pay down for, which is terrifying. I don't like it, but this Yankees lineup is not a typical Yankees lineup, which is helpful. Slowly getting back to that, but no Stanton, no Judge is obviously very helpful. Oh yeah, shout out to friend of the program, Sieg, living in KC right now. It is a little overcast, no rain. I'll keep him on speed dial for this one. What do you want to do with Junis if it goes?
So I don't have interest on Yahoo. I don't have interest on FanDuel. On Yahoo, you have Jeff Hoffman for a much cheaper price tag, who we'll talk about. But you have, like Griffin Canning for not a whole lot more than Junis. But on DraftKings, Junis is less expensive than both pitchers in Coors. He's less expensive than McGowan for the Nats. He's less expensive than Pomeranz and Michaelis. He's basically the least expensive pitcher who we can trust to throw like 90 plus pitches if he doesn't get lit up. His strikeout numbers have been terrible this year. He is still giving up a ton of home runs. Last year, he struck guys out and gave up home runs. This year, he's only doing one of those things. So that's not good. But there are a lot of really good hitters on this slate. There's a lot of SP1s that I would like to pay up for, and he lets you get some bats with those SP1s. So, if the weather cooperates, which still right now looks like a huge if from what I'm looking at, then I'll be getting to some Junis with zero confidence, but that's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Alex does with some of the updates. It wouldn't shock me if I X this game out completely. I would like it to just be wiped off the slate. So, Sieg, if you want to do me a favor, go out to your front yard, do a little bit of a rain dance. It would really be helpful for me. Do you want to get to any bats in this game if you think it plays?
If I think it plays, I mean, the Yankees are a really high upside stack, of course, against the pitcher with a 1.6 home run per 9. Kansas City bullpen that's not great behind him, and with all the rain in the area, I assume it's humid there, so ball should carry. But not a top stack for me, just because they are pretty expensive. Even Sanchez, who I think is a really good catcher option, like he's $900 more than Grandal on DraftKings.
Yeah.
He's more expensive than Real Muto in a good spot. So it just gets really tough to, prioritize some of these guys, like Luke Voit too. It's a Voit and Morales at first base. It's a really deep first base position. You can only roster one of them. It just gets tough to, full stack the Yankees.
Yeah. $4,800 Voit in Kansas City, which is a big time pitcher's park, a really tough sell. Junis is solid. All right, let's
Junis
move.
What? Junis is what?
Solid.
I guess.
No.
I mean, this year he has it. I've kind of been a big Junis guy in the past, but he's like taking a step back this year.
Okay. Yeah, like he's not a total gas can.
Yeah, he's not Soto. He's not the worst pitcher on the slate.
No, not at all. He's like the Adam of DFS, right? Like it's just correlated a little bit. Good enough. All right, time to go to Coors. 6.5 run implied total for the Rockies, 5.5 for the Orioles, 58% chance to win for Colorado. Jeff Hoffman, shout out ECU, going for the Rockies. My boy, John Means going for Baltimore. This should be fun. I don't get the sense that we want any pitching, but you went on like a little Twitter spiel about John Means being like some Cy Young candidate or something. I tried not to read it because it was garbage, but talk to me about John Means.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote up both of these guys in the deep dive today. One, because Hoffman, I think, is semi-viable, especially on Yahoo, where he's like $27. Means just because I had seen some pretty interesting data, but I'm not going to him here in Coors. But Means, I mean, just quickly, like Means, if you look at the new pitch, I'm blanking on the word, pitch movement leaderboards and information on StatCast, which like factor in gravity and similar pitch types and stuff. And it's really cool. I think it's a little bit more advanced than anything we had access to before, or at least that I had paid attention to. Means like we know he has the good changeup. He actually has the most drop on his changeup, but his changeup drops like 26% more than similar changeups in velocity across baseball. But what really jumped out to me and what I tweeted about as one of the very few useful tweets I actually send, he ranks amongst qualified pitchers. He ranks second in average rise versus average, and he ranks sixth in percent rise versus average on his fastball. So, and he's in like really good company, guys like Snell, Cole, Verlander. So it was just kind of interesting that maybe at some point going forward, he actually becomes a good pitcher. Like in terms of movement, he has two of the better pitches in baseball, not, in terms of command and results so far, but at least there's something there, which I don't know, is just kind of interesting since he came out of nowhere. But back to the slate, like I'm not getting to him here. There's no real reason to. If it were a shorter slate, then maybe just because you would have more ownership on Colorado. But with ownership spread out, I don't really think that you're getting to much Means. Hoffman was a former top prospect, has good stuff, throws like 95 miles an hour, has never really put it together in the majors. His only real time in the majors was with Colorado in 2017. He struck out less than 20% of hitters, wasn't very good, got bumped to the bullpen. It's an Orioles team that doesn't strike out a ton, but isn't that great either. It's a terrible park to pitch in. I don't hate going to Hoffman, but it's not a spot that I am getting to a lot of either outside of Yahoo. I think it's a pretty good play because he's just cheaper than everyone else.
I have two John Means jokes that I've been keeping in the chamber here. So when you said of qualified starters, is the qualification having the last name Means?
Good one, Josh.
Okay. How about this one? The only rise that I'm worried about today is the rise in my cholesterol levels after eating all of those pizza bites.
That doesn't have to do with Means.
No, but you said rise and it was about Means. This is my only path in here. That's all I got. I didn't listen to anything you just said.
You probably shouldn't have.
Right. So bats. Are you surprised that the Rockies aren't being owned more?
Yes. I mean, yes and no, because people don't want to roster the terrible pitching they're going to have to roster to get to them.
Yeah. They're third in ownership in the last update. I don't know if we've gotten one since.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think they're going to be owned, but I don't think that this is a slate with the pitching. Like, I don't think this is one of those slates where if you roster Colorado and then you see their ownerships, it's just like, wow, I played this massively owned team on a 14-game slate. I think it's a slate where they're probably popular, but they're under-owned relative to their chances of being the highest scoring team.
Yeah. Now, they're certainly getting a lot more ownership on FanDuel where they, don't care about where the game is played.
Yeah.
DraftKings, on the other hand, kind of tries to get out in front of that. So that's certainly helping. Jake said boo to both of those jokes. So, boo to you, Jake. Boo to you. Ownership to the Rockies on Yahoo is through the roof. Dahl, Story, Reynolds, and Rogers, all 27% or higher. Just absolutely massive. On DK, I want to get to these guys. I would rather take some chances at pitching to get to more Rockies just because of, look, you don't get a 6.5 run implied total every day. That's a pretty massive number. And that gets brought out by having John Means be on the hill. But I think the more interesting piece is, what do you want to do with Orioles bats that are basically going completely underrepresented?
Yeah, so the Rockies were tied with Milwaukee in my initial crunch for my highest owned stack. And as far as, roster construction, I was just kind of looking through them. It's a lot of either Syndergaard, cheap bad pitcher, and bad one-offs, or two mid-range, not very good pitchers and still not great one-offs. To be fair, that also is because a lot of these have Charlie Blackmon, who probably is not going to be in the lineup. But either way, you have to make some pretty ugly sacrifices. So I think that keeps ownership down. As far as the Orioles, they came in as my fourth highest owned stack. Hoffman, in his time in the majors, has not missed a lot of bats. He is a heavy curveball guy, which is a pitch that loses effectiveness in the altitude, in addition to it being, a spacious outfield and everything that contributes to it being a great hitter's park. Favorable price tags on the Orioles, a bad Colorado bullpen behind Hoffman. I certainly think there's a lot of upside here. I wish Chris Davis were in the lineup at 3,600, but as a consolation prize, we do get one of my favorite DFS guys back in the major leagues in Keon Broxton. So he's batting sixth. He's cheap. He's fast. He has power. Strikes out a lot. It's basically Chris Davis with speed. But he's really appealing because of the spacious outfield. His speed can turn singles into doubles, doubles into triples. Same goes for Jonathan Villar. Stevie Wilkerson is reasonably priced. Like the only real expensive hitters on the Orioles are Smith and Mancini, and Mancini's legitimately good. Smith might be good. He's at least been off to a good start this year. Yeah. So I think that they're clearly the more reasonably priced side of this game, and they let you get a little bit better in the way of pitching and one-offs.
Man, I lost out on whatever joke I was going to say there. I don't know. Is his speed not good enough to take a triple into a home run? You left that one off.
Yeah, my bad.
Clearly, my mind's not where it needs to be today.
I assume most of his triples are just getting out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you know what his weighted runs created plus is in Steamer projections?
Probably like 82 or something.
No, it's a more fun number than that.
69.
Nailed it. Yeah, I like the idea of getting to Baltimore here. If VR at 14% is by far the most owned guy. Shout out to Jake popping on. Jake is coming in to relieve me of my production duties while I go and preheat an oven and get all my stuff together. So let me just recrop this quickly and we'll be good to go.
Couldn't have come in before those jokes.
What's that?
He couldn't have come in before those jokes.
I would have saved you. I was on delay. I should have jumped in right after I heard the means rising, and I don't even know the other one.
Thanks,
just
Jake.
made me cringe here in my chair.
Thanks,
but,
man. Thanks.
Yeah. How are you feeling, Josh?
Oh, I'm feeling fantastic, man. I have no doubt in the world that this is going to work out positively for me.
All right. You seemed a little nervous earlier, so just wanted to make sure you were still going through with it.
I have no doubt that if this was just a random day, I would bang out 100 pizza bites like it was nothing. My concern at this point now is that my nerves and like actually doing this on the show will be prohibitive to me.
Well, you got a whole community behind you, I think. Or at least
I'm sure tons of people are really rooting for me in this one. I'm a real sympathetic figure.
That's true. Just ask Premium Slack.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'm going to flip this over to the next game up. So we've got A's, Angels, and Giants. That's the three games remaining for, those are the home teams. So I switched this to A's right now. Is there anything else I could share that would probably be better for?
Keon Broxton has a 78 projected WRC plus. So I just want to point out that you lied to the people right before you leave.
78? Are you looking at not Steam? Are you looking at Zips by any chance? I also haven't updated Steamer in like a couple days. So.
Yeah, I was looking at Steamer.
Okay.
On FanGraphs.
Okay. All right. It's all you, Jake. You are listed as Josh Engelman on the screen right now because I was going to split this into three, but I'm going to go and preheat the oven, make out 100 pizza bites.
So we're on Seattle and Oakland. Is that what you said, Adam?
Yeah. All the only thing that's left is 10 o'clock games, unless Adam has further thoughts or if you want to get some thoughts in on Rockies Orioles.
No, I mean, I've got some live before lock talking to do, so you don't need to hear any of my takes right now. You can hear them in 20 minutes while Josh stuffs his face.
Can't wait. All right. Have fun, guys.
All right. So we're going to do Seattle, Oakland, 4.3 implied total for the Mariners, 5.4 it's looking like for Oakland. Wade LeBlanc, Daniel Megnan. This is a game that I haven't really paid much attention to at all from a pitching perspective, but do you see anything here, Adam, that you want to target on DraftKings or any other site?
No, I mean, not really looking at the pitching here. Magnin's someone that I have interest in sometimes. I think he should be better than he is just based on some of the stuff that he has, but we're not really getting a discount on him. Seattle is a good enough offense that I don't really feel the need to go there. And then LeBlanc just doesn't have much strikeout upside. Really all I'm getting to from this game is getting to a pretty good amount of Oakland bats. I think they're one of the cheaper stacks on the slate that offers a lot of upside. So I would expect them to be relatively popular, but you get Stephen Piscotty at a cheap price tag. You get Semien probably leading off at a favorable price tag. Chris Davis may or may not be in the lineup. but if he's in, a good play. Matt Chapman's cheap, Chad Pinder's cheap. It's just a spot where I think they're a little bit underpriced against a mediocre lefty in LeBlanc and a less than good, Seattle bullpen.
Yeah, it looks like Seattle's getting some ownership on DK. Looking at the top stacks tool, they're one of the more owned stacks, but they still have a decent chance of getting or being the top stack. So I still like going to them. Cheap prices, 5,400, or I'm sorry, 5.4 implied total, 5,400. I don't know where that came from. But there was one more thing I was going to mention. I thought Chris Davis was on the DL. I thought that was announced a little while ago. That was something I was going to.
Yeah. Oh, that Chris Davis.
Is he?
Maybe he was in the projection that I looked at, and then now he's not. So maybe that was announced.
Yeah, 27 minutes ago. DL for Chris Davis. So we won't see him in the lineup tonight. I wonder who's taking his place. Laureano, maybe. I don't know if he was in there before.
Probably Kana, Piscotty, Laureano in the outfield.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I like Oakland. I'm getting to a bunch of them. I just ran like my dummy crunch with 600, so who knows where I'll get once I get down to 150, but I did get to a good amount of them. Okay, you mentioned neither of the pitchers really. I got to a little bit of Mengden on Yahoo. I think 1 or 2 shares out of my 10, just as a differentiation point to like Pomeranz and Ray. He's like smack dab in the middle of those guys. So I don't know. It was 1 or 2 lineups. I'm not crazy about it, but he is a pretty decent sized favorite, and he's not really getting any ownership at all. Anything more in this game?
No, I don't think so. Pretty much just Oakland bats for me.
All right, cool. Let's go to Texas and the Angels. We just got the Texas lineup. It looks like Drew Smyly, Griffin Canning on the mound here. Canning at just $37 on Yahoo. Does that interest you at all?
Yeah, I like Canning on every site, but he's more favorably priced, I think, on FanDuel and Yahoo. Like 7K on FanDuel, 37 on Yahoo, 86 on DraftKings. So, I think DraftKings is the least exciting price point, but I'm still getting to a pretty good amount there. He's, at the very least, got upside in this matchup. Some numbers suggest that he hasn't been all that good overall. Like he has like a 4.13 xFIP, which obviously is fine, but nothing great. But he has struck out about 27% of hitters this year. He has good stuff. He's done a pretty good job of limiting power to lefties and striking out lefties. And out of all starting pitchers that have thrown at least 300 pitches this year, he is third behind Snell and Sale in called strike plus swinging strike percentage through his first few starts. And then on top of that, there were some pitch count concerns when he first came up because he was throwing like 82 pitches to start at AAA, and then he was held into the low 80s his first couple of starts with the Angels. But his last 2 starts he's been at, I think, was 101 and 96 pitches. Yeah. So seeing him, fully stretched out now against a Texas team that does have some strikeouts. Angels Park, not the favorable pitcher's park that it was in the past, but I think he just has, a nice ceiling for his price tag. It's a spot where I think you can get to if you are looking to go with like 2 mid-range pitchers. He's not a bad SP1 in tournaments if you're just looking to get bats and get away from, the more expensive pitchers. Yeah,
I like Canning quite a bit on really all sites, like you mentioned. So he's a guy that I'm going to get to basically everywhere. I'm not really getting to many Texas bats. I don't know that I've found a need to get there really at all, especially looking at some of their prices on DraftKings. I mean, Gallo at 5,500, he's always in play as a one-off, but did you get to any Texas bats? You anticipate getting to any of them?
No, I wasn't really getting there either. I have respect for Canning. They're not the most affordably priced, especially because Gallo would be the guy that I really wanted to get to. So, I mean, I got some, but not a lot.
Yeah. What about the Angels versus Drew Smyly? I think EMAC wrote up Smyly as possibly a pitcher today, or no, did he want to stack against Smyly? I can't remember. I think he had the spotlight stack, so maybe he wanted to stack up against Smyly. What do you think of him versus the Angels here?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm taking a side, I'll take the Angels. But, I just Smyly hasn't really returned to what he was prior to his injury yet. It is a park that is a lot more favorable for hitters than it was in the past. And even on, if you ignore that Smyly hasn't been quite the same, there are just no strikeouts in the Angels lineup. So I'm not getting to a lot of Angels just because on this slate, I think there are better plays than getting to guys like Pujols and Jonathan Lucroy and David Fletcher and, whoever is not named Mike Trout or Shohei Ohtani in this lineup. But I'm certainly not getting to Drew Smyly either.
Yeah, the Angels are just like the perfect two-man. You've got two outfield spots. Like if you could stack them up with a team like Colorado, who's like their best bats are infielders. But obviously it's really tough to do that tonight. So I get to the Angels a ton as two-mans with Trout and Ohtani, or Trout and Fletcher, someone like that. But I don't think I'm going to get to them as a stack all that often tonight. I'm really any site. And they're actually showing up as one of the more over-owned stacks on DraftKings, especially. So looks like people are getting there just because of the implied total over 5 and then some value hitters, but just guys that I'd rather not roster when there's 27 other teams on the slate.
Right.
All right. I think that kind of covers that game. Where do you anticipate getting Canning as far as your most exposed pitcher? He's going to be your 5th most exposed pitcher on a site like DraftKings.
So in my initial crunch, which is just like a dummy crunch to see how things are shaking out, he was my fifth highest owned pitcher behind Syndergaard, Palm, McGowan, and Snell. Basically right in line with Junis.
Okay.
I expect that I'd probably come in around there. Our projected ownership, at least last I refreshed, was 17% on DraftKings. So that's not high enough where I think I would start losing Canning lineups. So yeah, I think that I'll probably be over the field.
Yeah, I think he's going to be in there for me, kind of that 4th to 6th range for me on DraftKings, just eyeballing some of the lineups I'm starting to rank out here. But I'm just getting to a ton of Syndergaard, even when I factor in ownership. So
yeah,
that'll be fun.
I never like when that happens.
What's that?
I never like when that happens.
Yeah, neither do I. I can't stand the guy. Has he gotten to 25 DK points this season yet?
He did once. He had like one of the best games ever and scored like 40-something points. And I think it was like against the Padres.
46.25. Okay, so outside of that, he's got one at 26.42 starts ago. But yeah, dying on the Syndergaard chalk, I feel like that happens to me like basically once every 5 days. So
yeah. I'm not on DraftKings today. I don't think I will be.
You won't be?
I don't think so. I'd be surprised.
Okay. Cool. All right. Is Josh back yet? Or no, he's not back. All right, cool. We've got one more game to talk about. We've got the Diamondbacks and Giants. 3.8 implied total here for the Diamondbacks. 3.3 for the Giants. Robbie Ray and Drew Pomeranz, two guys that are both getting ownership across the board on all 3 sites. Ray at 10.9 on DraftKings, Pomeranz 7,200 over there. Are you doing anything with either of these guys on DraftKings and then any other site after that?
Yeah, so with Robbie Ray, I think that on Yahoo and FanDuel, he's really appealing because of his price point, but I'm not getting there on DraftKings just because he's priced really closely to Sale and Snell, and he's more expensive, than Syndergaard and some other pitchers. And while the strikeout percentage means, the strikeout percentage is in line with him being the 3rd most expensive pitcher, he walks like twice as many guys as Snell and Sale do. So you run into issues not only of him putting more guys on base, but also just not getting as deep into games as those two do. And so I just can't get to him on DraftKings. But 8,700 on FanDuel and 3,800 on Yahoo, pitching in San Francisco against a really bad Giants team, I think it's a really good spot for Ray. As far as Pomeranz, he's affordably priced on every site. I actually totally missed him, admittedly, in the deep dive today. Just kind of skipped over him and didn't realize he was there until I was crunching my lineups and was like, oh, okay, I'm getting a lot of him. He's another pitcher that I really don't like getting to. I don't like the matchup against Arizona. I think it's a scary matchup. They have like a 115 WRC plus against lefties this year, but he's 7,200 on DraftKings. He's 5,900 on FanDuel, and he's 28 on Yahoo. I think that's just a really cheap price tag for a guy pitching in San Francisco on a slate with a ton of hitting and where we don't really have strong mid-range options that we feel really confident in. He's been, good enough this year. He hasn't been anything great, but he hasn't been terrible. I'm okay getting to him. The only, real issue I have is that he will be really popular because of his price tag, and I just don't have a ton of confidence in him. Yeah,
that's the thing. I mean, he is getting owned. He's kind of just getting owned because of the slate, I would think. $7,200 pitcher with a lowish implied total against him. And it's just that park, man. That park just makes anybody look okay for DFS when they're in this 7K range. So like I've been looking on Yahoo, I think it's easy. Like you just take the savings. He's way underpriced over there, near min salary. But like on DraftKings, like where else do you go in that range? Because I'm not seeing anybody that I have any confidence in playing that's below Pomeranz's price. Have you guys talked about anyone you like?
I'll probably end up with a lot of Kyle McGowan, especially if we keep projecting him for like 5% ownership.
Is he seriously still at 5? I just assumed you would come.
I haven't refreshed it, so it might have gone up.
Let's see. Yeah, he's still there. We haven't had an ownership update in a couple hours, but maybe he comes up a bit. But I doubt he jumps up to like anywhere close to Pomeranz. So yeah, I like that.
I have projected very, very similarly. I have Tyler Thornton projected similarly as well. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if we do have a big ownership gap in projections for me to kind of, once I sort my lineups, to be losing Pomeranz lineups at the expense of Thornton and McGowan lineups on DraftKings. But like on FanDuel and Yahoo, he's just so cheap that it's basically impossible to get away from me. So on Yahoo, it's basically impossible to get away. On FanDuel, if you're looking for a cheap pitcher, he's the one.
Yeah. All right. So that basically does it for the show. But we're going to go through our top. You guys do the top stacks and top plays at each position, right?
Just top stacks.
Just top stacks. Okay. Just one note on the projections. So Josh was correct. And Alex actually sent out a tweet. It looks like there's a pretty big chance that Alex thinks this game is going to postpone. So if you refresh your rankings, you can see about 50-50 whether or not it goes at this point. So does that do anything for you? Or are you just going to kind of cross this KC game off?
I'm going to cross off Jake Junis unless we get new information. I'll probably go ahead and just cross it off because it's a 14-game slate, and I wasn't getting to tons of it anyway.
Yeah, the Yankees were a team that I really wanted to get to. So that's kind of unfortunate if we're 50-50. I don't think you need to play – like there's a bunch of other teams with 5+ implied totals tonight. So maybe you just avoid that unless they're just projected to be like, 1% ownership or something crazy like that. So, yeah, that kind of sucks. We haven't had to deal with weather, feels like, for a couple weeks outside of the Minnesota game or the Minnesota-LA game that got postponed without any rain.
Yeah.
Thoughts on an LA stack? Oh, Josh, you're back? All right. Cool. So we can end the show whenever we need to.
Yeah, I'm here.
I've
been here for a couple minutes.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
All right. You were right. Did you hear me say you were right about the postponement risk in KC?
Oh, I just assume that I always am.
Yeah, I know. Amazing that you're so likable in Slack. It's amazing.
I don't think that's true either.
All right. Top stacks, Adam?
Milwaukee, Colorado, St. Louis, Baltimore.
What about you, Josh? Because you're not going to be able to talk very much.
Yeah, Rockies. Well, I think I will be. I'll be in by like 6:25. Rockies, Phillies, Padres, Brewers.
Yeah, it was going to be the Yankees for me. Rockies, hard not to put them up there. I do like the Dodgers quite a bit as well. I know you guys mentioned them. And then I think I'm going to get more than the field, which isn't very tough to do, on the Twins as well. I do like their matchup a little bit. So, shocker there. Twins are good, man. They're fun to play this year. They're not terrible.
Jakes, my man. Minnesota Jakes.
Yeah, last year I talked them up all the time, and they sucked. But this year they just score 15 runs every day. All right, feel free to end it whenever you want, Josh.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Deeper Dive is the promo code, 50% off. But here's the deal. Thank you to Yahoo for being our presenting sponsor. They probably don't want a part of what's about to happen in a couple minutes. Drop the link in chat. If you want to sign up to Yahoo, please use that link. Use the promo code AWESOMO. Get $30 in Yahoo Sports rewards points. But also click the link to the YouTube link click the link for the YouTube show Live Before Lock. Coming up next, the 100 Pizza Bite Challenge. Jake and Chris carrying the weight for the rest of the show. Talk to you guys later.